Hello to all of you researchers. It's a pleasure to be speaking to you, and we appreciate you for the work that you're doing. Well done. We cannot do the Small Farm Diaries without you. You are the pillar of the research that is being done. So well done, wonderful. We'll keep hearing the good things that you're doing and keep going, keep going. We are counting on you. And so even us sharing these videos is an opportunity to keep encouraging you, motivating you, and stirring you on. The struggle continues, but well done, it's a good job. Today, would like to speak about a very important subject matter also that is critical for this research. And I believe you're going to also be able to appreciate it. So let me just share my screen. Okay, there you go. So we want to talk about the do's and don'ts of making weekly appointments. What should you consider? What should you not consider? What should you be mindful of as you make appointments with your respondents? Okay. So start. So it is obviously very, very important that you try to consider several options or conditions as you do your scheduling for appointments with the respondents that you have. We do know that some of you are doing telephone interviews and others are doing face-to-face interviews. Regardless of what you're doing, it's important that you make certain considerations. And these considerations are by and large things to do with the length of time between when you make an attempt to do a call, but also they are critical in terms of understanding kind of looking at the type of contacts that you have had with the respondents before. Those are also considerations to make when you're making another arrangement for the next interviews, and also trying to look at certain variations between the timing and the schedules of the appointments that you're making. So such considerations broadly are very critical, and that brings us to an understanding of what then are the do's and don'ts of making weekly interviews. So let's start with the do's of making weekly interviews. What are the things you should do when you're making appointments with your respondents? Number one, do as much as possible, try to schedule your call before you take it by doing some mocks. You mock the process to increase your confidence when making interview appointments over the phone. You can, ask your friend or your family member to receive a call from you as your respondent as part of the practice. That's what I call mocking. And so use your planned call process to make this call and to treat this practice as the real thing. Let it come to you as if it's the real thing. Try recording yourself sometimes and listen back to get a feel of how you come across over the phone to help you improve the gap areas you have in making appointments and in calling to make appointments. So mocking yourself gives you an opportunity to practice, to learn before the real call, so that when you do the real call, you are more precise, concise, and on point. Number two, it is always advisable to create your own sort of protocol of how and when you're going to make the call. It's important to understand the reasons behind the call not being picked, if your calls are not being picked. The first point is to understand that there are several reasons why the respondent may not pick a call. They could be busy. It could be that they are not just interested in the interview. That's also obviously common. Among so many other things, it could be that they found the previous interview very sensitive, and among other things. So it's not good to write off the respondent very fast. It's not good to make conclusions that the respondent has not picked a call knowingly, especially when it's not really clear why they actually didn't pick the call. You can't know that. So the best approach would be to create a system of calling back that respondent in and as when it is necessary. The best approach would be to do multiple times of calls a day, mostly using the call schedule: a morning call, an afternoon call, and an evening call. That is if they have not picked you in the previous one. So if a respondent is not reached in one of the slots, you can call them back during the subsequent slots of up to 3 attempts, like I've explained, in the same day. This will definitely help you to maximize the ability to have a respondent now available and the possibility of picking at least one of those times. So create a schedule, create a protocol for calling back the respondents. Number 3, do leave room for scheduled callbacks. Several attempts to contact your respondent obviously are going to reduce non-response from your respondent. However, you as a researcher, you should consider several things for this to be successful. First, if your phone can provide automated responses, the responses you get when you call someone and then the phone is off, and then when you after some time, you get a message saying that the number you tried calling is now available. That will help you to be very timely in calling back that person when that message comes. So try as much as possible to try to be able to activate that system to be able to call back shortly after getting such a message. Please also note that the intention of the initial telephone call that you make with the respondent should not be to conduct the interview immediately if you're using telephone calls or telephone interviews, but it's to schedule the interview because you can find them when they are really busy. So as much as possible, vary the times of the day and the days of the week when the callbacks happen to make them much more effective and to increase the chances of making contact with the respondents at their convenient times, because that's what we really want. It's also important that in your prior engagements, you alert the respondents. Let's say you've met them before already in your first few weekly interviews. It's important to alert them that you may keep sending them some SMS, some WhatsApp messages, or anything similar to that. If their phone is unavailable, that's something that you need to tell them prior. This should help you to determine their suitability and acceptability of the option of sending SMSs, and should prepare them well to expect this. So when an SMS is appropriate and you have talked to them, you should well prepare to leave the message to the respondents, either to inform them of the interview if they have not picked, or to invite them to call back for the interview if they can. So after a certain number of callbacks, attempts to call back, which may probably be that there is no answer, maybe the line is busy or the phone is off. If you have such things, it may be useful to leave that message informing them that you will call them back at a later time or date, because sometimes you can put that and then eventually you must actually be the first to call you back because you've shown responsibility. So if you're using this approach, you should also try to work with your supervisor to draft a standard message for you to help you ensure that you convey the appropriate information to each of the respondents. Another do provide room for negotiation and flexibility. Please leave room to adjust the times for the weekly interviews and the dates in the initial periods when you've just started engaging with respondents. Why at this time both of you and the respondent are trying to adjust to each other and your schedules. You have your schedules, they have their schedules. All of you are trying to understand and learn each other. So The call should be about discussing the appointment in terms of the day, in terms of the time. If you find the respondent is not comfortable with certain set schedules, be flexible to have such a call to adjust those times. Number 5, do make physical visits at the beginning of the weekly interviews. You know, your initial visits should be made physical as much as possible, because there is really power in physical interactions. You know, when you put a face to the eyes to the face and the physical, it's very important. People get to connect very well. So you know that when you're starting the interviews during this time, respondents are trying to get more comfortable and familiar with you, and putting the face and the voice together improves this connection. So later, then you can schedule to have telephone interviews, or you can even make schedules using the phone-based system. If respondents are not picking your calls, you know, you can leave a room for a few, periods of time, like I mentioned before. And also, you can also leave a few days if you can't reach them after 1 day, 2 days, and try to make an appointment with them to visit them physically. You know, a phone-based request can never be as powerful as a physical meeting. That's the truth. We use these other approaches because we have failed with the phone-based system, but yeah, the physical would be really good. So when you're just starting the interviews with the respondent, remember they are busy people and may not always have time to pick your calls. So when you make them, so try to be able to visit them physically. Number 6, do speak with clarity when eventually you make the call. Do express clearly and precisely the purpose of the call that you're making for appointment. Avoid being vague in your request for an interview appointment, please. The major purpose of this call is to schedule that appointment, right? Yes. So while it's important to be very courteous and humble, and not immediately start off with a request or confirmation for the interview appointment, it's also important that you don't meander on the call. This may be interpreted as time wastage on these people by those respondents, because they are obviously busy business people. So use exact, appropriate, precise, concrete words as you speak and you ask for an appointment. Be very specific rather than trying to achieve too much on the same call at once. Don't try to ask too much on the call. Otherwise, it will meander, it will continue and drag on. So if it is to ask the appointment, don't spend time asking for a change of a meeting place, for example. If the call was to ask for an appointment and instead you focus on asking about the clarity on some of the previous responses they gave you in the previous little diaries, that's meandering. So this can wait, really. This can wait until the next interview or until another call. So the goal of your call should be clear, and this will enhance your request for the appointment and thereby also reduce refusals from your respondents. Number 7, do confirm the date, the time and the place of the interview before you go off the call. This is very, very important. And I think it's the most important part of your call. And therefore should be given much more priority. When you clearly get to affirm the interview date, the time, and the place, it will save you the embarrassment of having to go back to make a follow-up call because you meandered and you're trying to just clarify these things. So it also reduces the chances that the respondent may take you to be unserious and perhaps avoid you. So when you make the call, make sure that those key things are very specific and clear. So even when the call drops because of network, you know the date and time and place for that interview. Another do in scheduling appointments, do confirm if the interview is going to be on phone or face-to-face. As I indicated, I know that some of you are doing face-to-face interviews. Some of others of you are doing phone interviews. So before you hang up the call, you must make sure that you have picked the right schedule for the appointment. Of course, this will save you the time to call again and embarrass yourself with the respondent or to show up on an appointment physically when it was supposed to be a phone appointment, or the other way around. So be mindful of that when you're making appointments. Number 9, do try to make the calls a few times. If you have tried the first time and the call is not being picked by the respondent, try one more time, and then try another third time. However, don't overdo it afterwards. That's why I said 3 times in a day. It may attract complete non-response, because try going over to the respondent's location after that, and perhaps explain your reason for coming. As opposed to so many repeated unanswered calls from the respondent. But also when you make the physical visit, this should not become the routine practice, as the respondents may start feeling obviously overburdened. Number 10, please, when you make the call, do speak with conciseness on the call. When making an appointment, avoid being too wordy, avoid verbosity, as they call it. Communicating what you want to convey to the respondent in the least possible words is what I would encourage you to do. This will obviously underline and highlight the main message of making an interview appointment. And being concise will help you also to avoid using excessive and needless words you don't need, because these are people, like I said, that are busy. So it will be useful to practice using short, essential, limited words prior to making the interview call. So also being concise on the call will make you to be more appealing to the respondent, to be more accommodated even in future calls, because you don't bother them with long calls. What you're saying will also be easily comprehensible to the respondent, because it is short and concise, and this will also help you avoid being non-repetitive in speech. Number 11, do speak with courtesy and consideration on the call. To stimulate positive reaction from the respondents when making an interview appointment on the call, consider the viewpoint of the respondents. Try to be jovial when you're talking to them on the call. Try to be warm. Try to be respectful. Be polite. Be enthusiastic with energy and positive motivation. Things like, hello, good afternoon, good morning, sir, good morning, good afternoon, madam. That is enthusiasm. You're jovial, as opposed to hello. So there is a difference. So and so try to modify your words on the call to suit the respondent's needs as you have deemed it fit in the initial words that they say to you. If you say hello, and then someone responds and says hello, and then they say, I'm not in a very good mood, if they say that. So try to detect that very quickly and also change the mood. So if you've been saying hello, and then they say, I'm not in a very good mood, then you say, oh, sorry. So you have to really be like that, not keeping in the same mode. Otherwise, people will find you very cold, something like that. So if they say, call back later, don't insist that the call will take a short time, please allow me, and you continue talking. No. In general, just put yourself in their shoes, really, and what they are going through. During the call, try to use, what we call interjections when you're speaking. Things like, okay, or things like, I see, things like, oh, I understand. So this will let the respondent know that you're listening and that you are a person of courtesy. Of course, you don't have to be to interrupt them when they are talking, because you simply want to bring in interjections, but time them well so that they come there. So those are the do's that you should do to make your interview appointment successful. But there are also the don'ts. We would like to focus on the don'ts. What shouldn't you do? Don't do these things. Number 1, don't be extremely persuasive on the call. It's important to win an appointment. That's why you make the call. But don't force it. Don't force it. If you do, you will be seen to be nagging, overburdening. You will not be seen as a person who is objective and professional, as it should be. So, for example, don't force your preferred times on the respondent. Always start from their viewpoint and their preferences. but don't push too much. That might attract refusal, that might attract non-response to your next appointment because they find you to be very extremely persuasive. Number two, don't be a typical stingy researcher. Your first few seconds of your appointment call should not be about the request for the appointment, really, unless you sense the need for that, unless you sense that the respondent is very busy and they want to get done with the call as soon as possible. If that's not the case, when you make the call to schedule this appointment, don't make the request in the first minute of your call or in the first few seconds of your call. Start briefly by asking about the responding time. Hello, how are you? How is life? How is the business, by the way? So that will ensure that the researcher, the respondent see you beyond just the researcher coming to schedule appointments and collect data and go away. They see you as a person who is interested in their business. So if in the last visit that you made, for example, your respondent was struggling with something in their business, just make a call to, to let them simply know that you care. You find out if they manage to go around that issue and to encourage them if they are still struggling with it. Because if the next time you call, they will definitely be happy to hear from you because they see you beyond just a data person. So if you sense that things are not going okay for them when you make a call or when you meet them, you don't have to say anything about the next appointment, even if that's why you called. Just show concern for their business without necessarily being seen as a business intruder. However, don't please overdo this. So number three, don't call at known awkward times and days or at known busy times in the businesses of the farm dairies respondents. What do I mean? Don't make calls at times or days when it is extremely clear that these people are busy. That means you're attracting refusal there and then, or in the next appointments, you're attracting resistance for people to pick your calls. So respondents will always seemingly be, see you as a person who engages in their busy schedules. So you don't want that. So try to avoid calling during such times. Number four, another don't pick a non-suitable location when you're making your calls. When you're choosing to make a call to fix an appointment, avoid noisy places, avoid public spaces, look for a very private, quiet location, like obviously your home. And if you're living in that home with family and friends, warn them that you're going to make a call in advance and you need privacy, or move away and call in a different place where they're not. Minimize a lot of background noise, close windows, turn off any sound systems that you have. Don't start making appointments and the background, the respondent is seeing you as if you're in a dance hall. Okay, so put off all electronic devices, just simply to avoid distractions. Yes. Number five, don't multitask on the call. When you're making a schedule for the appointments, please limit what you're doing when you're making this call or when you're on the phone call. Focus on the call and do it well. Don't take the call as if you are eating. When you're eating, don't take the call. It might come off as offensive. It may sound disrespectful. So don't take the call when you're walking, because you may not be stable, maybe shaky, and the network might actually be up and down depending on where you are. And you may not also hear what they're saying. So please don't multitask on the call. Focus on the call. Then you can find other things later. Catch up with them. Number six, don't risk making a call with a poor connection. Don't risk interrupting your call by taking it in a place or location that has a poor connection. Sometimes you have poor connection and actually our phones don't go through. So make sure that the network service in your location is consistent. Don't be afraid to tell your respondent that you can't hear them when the call goes through. Speak up, because this is better than spending the whole time missing what they are saying because you don't have network or they don't have network. Sometimes it's them that they don't have good network. So always don't take the call from a bad connection. If you can't hear a respondent well, let them know politely. You can say, I'm sorry, I missed that. I think the connection is poor. Yeah, so tell them so that you don't miss the appointment. So that is what I wanted to share with you about ensuring that we make weekly appointments more successful, and we reduce refusals and reduce on callbacks, because those people will be calling us back if we do make very good time, good use of our time when we actually talk to them and when we call. That's it, and we keep encouraging you to be very good researchers as you've been. We are hearing the stories, and please keep going. We trust what you're doing, and we believe in you. The sky can only be the limit. Thank you so much, and stay well.